Okay, we're live. Karine, how are you?
I'm great. How about you?
Good, good. I always have to think about when I pronounce your name, your
Mhm.
reminder to me that it does not rhyme with my name.
That is
Because
true.
I call you Karine and you're like, no, it's Karine. So, Karine,
Yes,
how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good actually. Had a nice breakfast it's my birthday tomorrow, as you know.
Yes.
The founder of the snowboard club that I've been working with for the past 17 years, anyway, so she came by and brought me some breakfast. So it was really lovely, and we had some nice chats, and yeah, it's a good start for the week for sure.
Nice. What a nice way to start, like you say, start your week. So
Yeah.
you've been working there for 17 years?
Yes.
Wow. You
Yeah.
don't look old enough. You don't look old enough.
Well, that's what I was telling Beth. This is going to be my 18th season with them. So it's half my life that I've been working with Riders on
Wow,
Board. So
that's
yeah, I
crazy.
know. Yeah. So came out of Quebec, just, a little French girl wanting to train for snowboarding, and ended up coaching on the side, just kind of a part-time thing. And it turned into my career. So
And you went to school for a million years before that started, didn't you?
throughout all of that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so went to school in Montreal. I went to business school, and then when I came out here, I went back to university with the National Coaching Institute to do my advanced coaching diploma. And yeah, so that was a lot of school. A lot of people, actually, it's interesting because they always ask me, "Oh, would you go back to school?" And no, thank you.
You've got enough credentials at this point.
Well, not just credentials. I don't know if I would have the patience or, the room in my brain.
So you have a background in business. And then my understanding too from our chats is that you've
Mhm.
done something with kinesiology. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's the advanced coaching diploma. It's through the National Coaching Institute at U of C. And it's a program that's been changing and evolving throughout the years. It used to be called the NCCP, so the National Certification Coaching Program. So it used to be, they had level kind of like 1 through 5. And then so it evolved into levels 1 and 2 were then part A and B. So it was kind of complementary to each other. And then level 3 and then level 4 and 5 were combined into the advanced coaching diploma with the
Hmm.
National Coaching Institute. So it went from a 4-year program through a 3-year program. And, different coaches and different cohorts have had definitely different experiences. And it was, when I went through, it was a very personalized program. There was only 5 of us in it.
Mm.
Um, so it was definitely really interesting to kind of go through that. And, I did learn a lot, um, you know, as you do with school, but also a lot about myself and what kind of coach I want to be, and, what kind of values, I want to pass down to the kids. And, it helped me with, my role in the snowboard club as well.
That's really cool. So I've
Yeah.
interviewed people before and I've had them on the podcast who are, business coaches or life coaches and that sort of thing. But you are a high performance sports coach.
Well, that's I don't want to say high performance because we're not high performance. I mean, we do have high performance athletes, and yes, I do work with some of them, but we focus on the 99%. When I started with Riders on Board, there was I think there was 30 athletes and maybe 4 coaches.
Mm.
And I mean, now we've expanded to 300 plus athletes everywhere in the province. We have a program in Edmonton, one in Red Deer, one in Calgary, and then over 40 something coaches working with us as well. And the goal is not high performance. I mean, if one kid's goal is high performance, then great, we'll help them to get there. But our goal is to build values around the sport, is to have a safe place for the kids to go. And, you know, no matter what their goals are, if their goals are high performance, we'll help them through, you know, to get to where they want to be. If their goal is just to be recreational, we'll help them to, you know, whatever personal goal each athlete has. That's been a very important part for us, is that we help each athlete to kind of get to where they want to be, no matter what the goal is.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So you've mentioned values twice. You mentioned, you know, going to school helped me determine my own values, helped me learn a lot about myself. And then, you know, you talk about values in terms of coaching the other athletes as well. So values is an interesting word because everybody uses it a little bit differently. So tell me more about values in terms of your coaching. How does it play in?
As far as it kind of, so my whole goal in this, when I first started coaching, was to get more girls involved in snowboarding and in sport. I grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of girls, and I kind of always wished I had, you know, a couple friends that I can just, you know, being a teenager and, you know, wanting to hang out with girls my own age, but nobody was really into snowboarding. So I hung out with my cousin a lot, and, you know, kind of snowboarded with boys mostly. And, you know, when we started, we have a program called the Little Sisters program. So we started it 11 years ago. And the first little baby rider I had in that program, she was 2.5 when I started her. So yeah, so ran into her parents at the Calgary ski and snowboard show. And, you know, we were kind of just walking around and bumped into them, started talking about snowboarding because they wanted to get their little daughter involved, and she was only 2.5. So we were snowboarding once a week at a hill actually here in Bridgeland. And so anyways, she is still in our programs. I've been coaching her for 11 years now, and now she's in our GROM competitive program. And when I think about values, I think about her, because, you know, to build the sport, like values around the sport is so important, because, you know, the kids, they come in, they make friends around the sport. It makes them want to go with their friends, and then they become friends outside of the sport, and that's friendships for life. And that's what life's all about, right? You know, it's surrounding yourself with people with, you know, similar interests and similar values. Again, I go back to values, but that's how I grew up myself. You know, my parents wanted to build values around the sports, so they put my sister and I in all the sports, and that's kind of where it goes back to, you know, building values around the sport. And to see them now, even, you know, throughout the pandemic, we were having Zoom meetings with them, and she met one of the girls in the program through snowboarding, and turns out that they go to the same school and they live really close to each other, and they were leaving each other, you know, secret messages in their mailboxes and exchanging books and making little art things for each other and leaving it in. And that, I mean, that's so sweet, and it's kind of what got them through the pandemic. And if you think about that and you rewind and you go back to when she was 2.5 learning on that little small hill, that's kind of where it all started. So.
I see. So when you're talking about values, you're talking about integrating the value of sport and a sense of community within the sport into your life.
100%, yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm thinking of values words, before, when I've talked about it, we talk about, you know, the value of honesty, courage, integrity, you know, all those sorts of value words being a guide to how you live. So I hear you using the word value a little bit differently. And I think, you know, on some of our walks, because we've had many, and we've gotten talking about, you know, your passion for what you do. And I think that's what really intrigued me, is how passionate you are for bringing the value of sport into someone's life. And I think that usually stems from personal experience. So tell me about how has sport played a role in who you are, and why it's so important to you to pass that on.
Wow, that's a really hard question.
You can pause, you can think about it.
No, I feel, I mean, definitely it's been passed down from my parents because sport has always been a big part of their lives. And, you know, we talk a lot about mental health and staying sane in your own environment. And, you know, having two very hyperactive children, my parents were always taking us on walks. And, you know, we grew up on top of a hill and there's a forest behind our house. So we climbed trees and we were always pretty active. But I feel like being part of a sport, an organized sport, helped me personally in developing really good work values and a work ethic. You know, sports teach you so much about that, you know. I mean, all the values that are around sport, you can relate to your life. And I just feel like that's such an integral part of who I am that for me, you know, my dad has this saying that he always says, life is like carbon paper, you pass it on. And I always love that because that's what I keep thinking when I'm coaching. And it's like, you know, and the words that I use in coaching too, I feel are so important because you hear a lot of coaches that say, I want you to. And when I coach, I say, let's do this together. And I feel like that's a huge part of my values too, is that I want to work with the athletes and with the kids and, you know, to have them have those important parts of, you know, sport that kind of define my life and define who I am as a person. Does that answer the question?
It does. It certainly gets me where I want to go here. So when you think back, because so what I was listening to a podcast this morning and it was a counselor or a therapist, and she was saying, you know, when you're choosing, a lot of people go into therapy, I'll get to sport in a second here, but what a lot of people go into therapy and they choose a therapist based on their modality or skills or their years of experience or their background. And she said, really, there's been so many studies out there that show that the relationship with a therapist is more important than all of that stuff. And when you're talking about sport in your life and the way that you coach, instead of I want you to, let's do this together, I hear so much relationship in that. Right. And that passion that you have for, you know, and I've seen you help a little 4-year-old skateboard down the street, right? And so you know, and I see that it's all about the relationship, right? It's all about that. So tell me about a coach that you've had that had such an impact on you.
Actually, the coach that has the most impact on me was my swimming coach in high school.
Okay.
It's kind of funny because whenever I think about coaching and, you know, what kind of coach I want to be like, I always, you know, there's always someone kind of at the back of your mind that you associate with that.
Yes.
And he was also my math teacher. And he was just such a goofball and, you know, just always there for you. And, you know, you could go to him with any, even if it wasn't related to sport, you know, any kind of thoughts or feelings or, you know, and I mean, high school is hard for everyone out there. And I feel like he was such an important part of my high school experience as a coach. And, you know, the way he coached me was, I could relate to, I don't even know how to explain it. It's, you know, we always say this in snowboarding and in sport in general, that not every athlete is for every coach or not every coach is for every athlete.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like he was my coach, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was the guy that could say the words that would just kind of like get me right away. Yeah.
You could hear him.
I could hear him. Yes. That's a great way to put it.
And it sounds too a little bit like you felt seen by him. You know, you felt understood, you felt heard. You know, if he's the kind of person that you felt you could go to him with anything that you were struggling with or whatever was on your mind, typically those are the people that can see you and hear you as a person and are cheerleading for you. You know, those are, and so when I hear you talk about coaching, especially 2.5-year-olds. My God, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do that. Like I'm like, I got to come watch some of this because I'm thinking, I can't imagine trying to coach a 2-year-old to skateboard and snowboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, our snowboarding program has definitely kind of, evolved and taken different kind of twists and turns, and with the facilities putting rules in that, athletes have to be at a certain level for us to be able to take them in our snowboard club, because we are a club, we're not a snow school, and which is completely understandable. And with the resources as well, it's a little bit more difficult when you have to work one-on-one, especially as a nonprofit organization, and with kind of all the work that we do. Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of resources to do one-on-one. So our programs have definitely evolved for snowboarding, where now we take little snowboarders that can turn, and then we kind of take them from that level on. But for skateboarding, we definitely take them. I mean, we have a toddler class that's for 2 to 6 year olds, which is pretty amazing. But I mean, with that age, like, you have to teach them how to listen first, and then
Yes.
we do a couple of drills, and I also teach children's yoga, so we do a little yoga adventure at the beginning of each class, and it's super fun. And then we go skateboarding, and it's been so great because all the kids are into it.
Yeah.
And that makes our job so easy, because you have fun with them, you build those relationships, and it's actually hilarious that I've got the whole neighborhood skateboarding now.
You do. I've seen you recruiting.
Yeah, it wasn't even on purpose.
You've got every kid in the neighborhood coming to skateboard, which I think is fantastic. But look at how they're so excited, right?
Oh, I know.
And they will build, like you say, lifelong friendships and
Yes.
and mentorship relationships with role models like yourself. I just think it's fantastic. And
Yes.
and I'm glad that there's people like yourself who can do that, because I certainly cannot. Not growing up in sport myself, I just, I really am curious. Tell me about the role of sport, because I didn't really have that as a kid for me. And so I feel like I kind of missed out on all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm talking to you and I'm hearing about how integral it was into you developing who you are, I'm seriously quite fascinated. And I looked online this morning. I looked at the compound, right, which is where you work. It's a skate park in Calgary.
It is, yeah.
And I looked at your summer camps ages, and you've got 2 to 6 and then 7 to 17. I didn't see the over 50 age group listed there.
That's going to be a one-on-one lesson right on the sidewalk here. So
we're going to do some one-on-one out front. That'll be exciting.
Yes, definitely.
And so you told me at one point too that your specialty growing up was the half pipe.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because that's like the coolest thing ever.
I mean, it's pretty normal for, I don't know, us, especially at work and in the community. Nobody's going to be like, oh, Karine rides the half pipe, yay. It's very normalized, I feel. But I mean, that's because we're all part of kind of the sport, right? But yeah, I mean, that's my happy place. I love riding the half pipe. Just the feeling I get, when you have all that pressure and then you get to the top of the wall and the release of the pressure, and it's just like, I don't know, it just feels kind of like you're flying.
Yeah, like I think I've had nightmares in which I was flying like that. Like, I mean, how old were you when you first went on the half pipe? Like, do you remember?
Yeah, it was the second year that I was snowboarding. So I think I was 11 or 12. And back in my hometown, I mean, half pipes have evolved, since I started learning in them, where, now there's a 22-foot half pipe, and it's a perfect transition, and everything is just, so beautiful. Where my first half pipe experience, it was like a square, and you basically had to like ollie from like the bottom to the wall, because there was like no transition. So
ollie is like when you tip it up. Like, what's an ollie?
So your feet kind of go like, I don't know, like,
and
then you like jump up.
Kind of jump up. Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, and then I mean, from there they got a half pipe cutter, so it got better and better. And then I came out here for a couple of training camps, and that's kind of when I fell in love with Calgary. And my coach at the time was actually moving here, and he asked me if I wanted to move with him. And he came to my house and sat down with my parents, and they're like, okay, peace.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, I moved out here. It was, yeah. And then I was kind of on and off. So I would go back to Montreal every summer. So I was here for 5 months and in Quebec, in my hometown, for 7 months. And at some point I had to make a choice. So I decided to stay out here.
That's awesome.
So yeah. And I mean, mostly, honestly, 80% of the decision was riders on board. I mean, when I moved out here, I didn't really know too many people. Like, I have family friends that live in Langdon down south, but didn't really know, too many people. And the first time, I remember when I met Beth, who's the founder of the club, met her at the Talisman Center, actually. So went out there for an interview.
Yeah.
And the first time I met her, I was like, oh man, like, I don't know if I like her. And she was just like very, I don't want to say standoffish, but she's the kind of person you meet for the first time, and until she knows where you're at, or you know what you're about, she kind of is very private, I guess. But then she basically adopted me, so
and to the point where she brought you breakfast this morning and had breakfast.
That's right.
That's quite an evolution of a relationship. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And then her son excuse me, her son Jared is our head coach. So I work with him. We work together on mostly everything, do all the administration together, and so it's pretty good.
That's awesome. So you are, I'm gonna, that's interesting. I think you're a high performance coach. I'm gonna call you that. So Karine, you've listened to a few podcasts and you know the drill. So here's the broken open question for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Have you been giving this some thought?
Yes and no.
Okay, well, let's see what comes out here.
Okay.
Tell me about a time when you experienced some adversity in your life that at the time felt like the end of the world, felt like a tragedy, that in retrospect was a real gift to you.
Building the girls programs didn't come easy at all.
Okay.
Have had lots of failures, for sure. I was trying to do different camps kind of everywhere in the province, and you know, I had 1 or 2 kids show up where, you know, I wanted to build it, and I didn't really know the format, you know, or the formula, I guess, to build it. But out of that, one story in particular, when I think about the struggles of building programming and wanting to get girls involved, and, you know, having this, you know, passion inside me that I want to share and I want to build something, and nobody's almost buying into it, you know. One story actually sticks with me still now. There's this girl, she is from Australia, and her parents were here working, and so anyways, they called the club and they saw that we had these camps, and she came out to Sunshine. I think I had 3 girls in that camp, and it was amazing. I mean, we connected, you know, as a rider coach kind of thing, and she just kind of, you know, got it too, because she hadn't been snowboarding for that long. And you know, fast forward 10 years later, she contacted us because she was moving back to Canada. She was moving to Edmonton, and she ended up coaching with us for 3 years until she went back to Australia last year. But, you know, that's such a, you know, when I look back on that, that's a lot of our athletes' stories as well. You know, they ride with the club for a few years, or, you know, you kind of meet that kid that's maybe in the club for 1 year, and then they come back and they say, how can I get involved? And that's, to me, that is the goal at the end of the day.
That's indicative to you that you've made an impact, that they want to be part of it.
Exactly. And that, you know, we, like you said, we have made an impact on their lives, and that they want to stay involved in the community. And at the end of the day, you know, you think about recreational high performance, and you think about all the kids, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's about the kids. And to see them snowboarding even after they've left the program, and some of them go into filming, some of them go, you know, more into the national team route, or some of them go to university, and they might all have different pathways. But then at the end of the day, you think, I've made an impact on their lives. And that's how I always get myself out of any kind of situation, or, you know, when I start getting in my head, I always think about the kids, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So
what I'm hearing you say then is that you
sorry.
have you got a doggy that's
yeah, he's just like biting himself and it's distracting.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it was really tough to get this program going, and you faced some adversity in doing it.
Yes.
And that then you had, you know, a sort of a case in which you sort of came to realize that the program was of value, people were getting it, you did have an impact, and you transfer that knowledge that when things get tough, when things seem harder than they should, when you've got a vision for something that no one else is sharing, right, and you're feeling like this is never going to take off,
yeah,
you remember that, oh yeah, what I'm doing matters. It has an impact on people's lives. It's worth it. Exactly. It's worth pushing through this.
Yeah. And I mean, throughout anything or any kind of, you know, you think about mental health, and everybody has different, you know, things that they go through. And, you know, I have those things too, where, you know, we talked about this a lot, where I had to reprogram myself at the beginning of the pandemic because I didn't know how to not run around and be like all over the place and be around a lot of people. And what always gets me out of it is thinking back on, you know, that 2.5-year-old, on, you know, that girl in that one clinic that came back, and, you know, we made an impact on her. And it's all these little, I mean, I can think about a million stories to tell you, because, you know, we have so many kids, and there's so many kids that have gone through the program, and I have so many amazing memories with a lot of those kids. And that's what it's all about. It's about them, and, you know, making sure that they grow up in a safe environment, that they build values around the sport, and that it takes them through life, and that they, you know, have a place to go to when they do feel that adversity as well. And, you know, I'm very much about other people, and not so much about myself, but that's what brings me joy.
Yeah, you want to have an impact.
Yeah, and just, you know, I want to make sure that they become good people and good human beings that make a difference in the world and in their own way. So
you talked about, you know, when you were a kid too, and you know, you learned, you know, discipline and tenacity, and you didn't use those words. I'm putting words in your mouth, so tell me if they're not quite right. But
no,
you know,
that's absolutely right.
Right? You learned that, yeah. You know, like sometimes you fail, and you fail again, and you fail, and you fail, and you fail, and you fail, and then you get back up and you try it again. Yeah. And even in the time that I've gotten to know you better, over COVID, right? Because that's kind of when we really started hanging out a bit, is through COVID. But 6 feet apart, everybody, don't panic. So yeah, so when
social distance walks.
Social distance walks. So and you know, you did face adversity in this last 12 weeks, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Two big things that I can think of, right? You experienced, you know, the idea that, you know, your club is closed down, you're without work, you're without an income, you may have to, you know, be laid off during that time, and you need to reset everything and figure it out because you are on your own. Right. And, you know, and I was kind of from afar watching how you sort of processed through that, right? You're very, I from a distance, I watched you kick it into self-care, right? You're a
Mhm.
person who's go, go, go all the time, and you just got very still for a day or two,
Yeah.
right? Looked after yourself.
Mhm.
And then, you got kind of creative and busy, and you looked at other ways to make some money temporarily. And, hats off to you for that. So I was like, oh, that's kind of
Mhm.
interesting the way you've kind of walked through that. And then, of course, last week with the flooding, right?
Yeah.
Your club flooded
Yeah,
massively.
our building flooded. I did not react well to that at all, actually. I mean, looking back, we kind of laugh about it now, but I mean, I was a mess. But I feel like, COVID hit us, and then, financially I was doing okay. And, like you said, I always find different ways to make extra revenue as well. And summer is kind of when I, go back to bartending and serving and do that for a couple months as well for extra revenue. And that's not happening this year. So yeah, that was definitely kind of the part one. And then when we flooded, that I feel like, I processed all of the information with COVID and all that. And then we had our month of May where you and I were going walks almost every day. And I was working out a lot, and I started keto, and all these awesome things were happening. Hang on.
He's not distracting me.
He's distracting me because I can hear him. um, so all these great things were happening, but then the flood hit, and it's almost like the emotions kind of came back as a tidal wave, almost as I thought I had processed all of the emotions, but I didn't. And when I showed up at the compound and I had water up to my waist, I was on FaceTime with Beth and on FaceTime with Jared, and I panic. It's so interesting because in the past, any situation, kind of panicky situation that I've been, that have happened, especially when I was working my corporate job, I always stayed calm, and I figured out a plan. But this was, the last 5 years of our lives that we've been building and working so hard at building our camps, and doing renovations in there. And well, that's all Jared, that's not me. But having, kind of building it together and building all the programs, and all I saw in my head was that it was all gone. So I'm in the middle of the parking lot FaceTiming with them, and they're like, hey Karine, like, go to Home Depot, go get some fans, go get some HVACs, get whatever you can. So I leave, and then halfway there, I can't find my wallet. So I don't know if I dropped it in the water or if I forgot it at home. And I was panicking. And then I ended up turning around, went back to the compound. Jared got there, and then it was crazy. I mean, he was in his like fishing gear, basically, trying to unclog the drain because that was the issue. And then Tom showed up too. He's kind of one of our main staff and coach, and they were trying to get the drain unclogged, and all of a sudden we got hit with another storm, and I could see lightning bolts on the hill behind us. And so all I'm thinking is they're gonna get hit. And so I was making them take turns to go in the water and unclog the drain. It was crazy, Maureen. I mean,
one at a time, electrocution, one at a time.
Seriously, thinking about it, it's like a movie, And then once they got it unclogged, then we had to rip apart the floors. So all of the floors in our studio, we had beautiful cork floors, and we had like tiles in the entrance and the counter area. We had to rip everything out, and then vacuum all the muck out because it got super muddy. And then we had to, we were at the concrete and we just mopped everything. It was crazy.
I just hear so much overwhelm in your story.
Oh, yeah.
Like I do. Yeah. And you did send me that video of yourself, and I could see it there too. And I that's what I'm hearing, like, COVID hit and you're kind of like, okay, one step at a time, right?
Yeah.
And then everything it's like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. We're going to be okay. And then the place opens up. You're open for 1
2
week,
weeks.
2
Yeah.
weeks,
Yeah.
and this hits. And
Yeah.
there's just, I would imagine, the pace of those things, like if that had happened a year from now, it probably would not have felt the same.
No, definitely it wouldn't.
Right. So you're not quite, like you say, all the way through the,
Exactly.
one, you're not quite over the hump of one thing and something else hits.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much fear there.
Yes.
Would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, there's just a million things that were going through my head, and I don't know if I can justify them now because we're fine. And, we thank goodness for our amazing community that so many people came through to help us. And in 3 days, we got the place cleaned up and dried up. And, that's working, almost around the clock with everybody doing kind of different shifts. But yeah, I mean, the fear of, I don't even know how to justify it now. Cause I said, we're fine. And, I always know that no matter what, Jared's going to come through and he's always going to be, the person to get everybody organized and get everything figured out, and it's going to be fine. But in that moment, I just couldn't get past that hurdle.
Yeah. And you don't even need to justify it, I don't think. Like, the fear is the fear, right?
Yeah. But it's weird to think about it now, because I'm like, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. But I mean, and so maybe next time if something happens, you'll think,
hopefully
okay,
that doesn't happen again.
No, but you can stop. Yep. And this is the key, because I've been there, man, where I've overwhelmed and I'm just, it's one thing after another, and things that normally, like I say, a year from now, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But on top of this and on top of this and on top of this, when you're already taxed, right? You haven't been able to fill your bucket from the last tragedy yet. Mm-hmm. You're still trying to get back above the surface of the water, and someone shoves you down again, and there is a fear. I'm not okay here. I don't have the resources to calm myself down. I don't have the bandwidth, or the leeway. I don't have the flex here to say, but I think for me, the key is to always, I can get caught up in fear. I do all the time. I get, oh my God. And then I have to remember, okay, none of that has happened yet. Mm-hmm. I've always been okay. Yeah. I'm going to be okay. One step at a time, ask for help. You guys got lots of help and assistance, and you're okay. And you ran a camp, so you had to cancel. Some of the neighborhood kids were supposed to come to their first camp on that Sunday, and they couldn't, and they could come last Sunday. How was it?
That was yesterday, actually. It was amazing. I can send you some videos, actually. It was pretty awesome. I mean, they showed up and they were stoked, and they listened so well, and they can now push on their own. They can pump on the ramps. They can do little box drops. I mean, I'll show you the videos so that you kind of get the gist of how everything looks. But I just love seeing them so excited to learn new things. And it was really funny because it's an hour class. At 12:50, the little neighbor asked me, can we take a break? And I said, we only have 5 minutes left. Like, really? We've gone almost an hour without a break? So it was really funny because her dad, when she came home, he said, so how was it? And she goes, I'm so tired. We didn't even get to take a break.
I know this little girl, and I got hats off to you if you wore her out. Like, hats off to you, because she is a busy little devil. Like, she's but when she's as a whip. And
oh my goodness, she's so smart. But when she was skateboarding, she was so focused and she was so determined to get everything right that she, like, usually she's so chatty, she always comes and chats us up every day pretty much, and she loves my dog. So she's always at the fence asking for Dexter, but man, she did so good. And, you know, the two other kids from across the street, they did so good. And that's the thing, they loved it. And
that's so good.
Yeah. And I just,
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. And so where do you see yourself in 5 years, Karine?
Honestly, I want to be where I am. This has been my dream job, my dream environment ever since I can remember, is to be in sports, and especially snowboarding, because I love it so much. And, you know, to be working with different kids and from different situations. You know, we also, something that I don't think I've mentioned this before, but we have a foundation that we work with in the summer to provide families that don't have the means to send their kids to summer camp some help to send them to camp. And I mean, this is kind of a whole other thing than the question that you've asked me, but there's a documentary called Push to Heal. I'll send you the link. It's about mental health and skateboarding.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it's very interesting. It's like the science behind it. And so after seeing that documentary, it kind of made me realize how much skateboarding and snowboarding really helps with mental health, but skateboarding specifically, because it is such a cheap sport. I mean, you can go get a skateboard for $80 and do it in front of your house, you know, where snowboarding, you have to get the equipment, you have to get the lift ticket and all that stuff. But, you know, skateboarding specifically, it's, that documentary like made me realize so many things. So you'll have to watch that. It's just 15 minutes, but it explains a lot.
So you're running a program then, sort of that disadvantaged, we'll say, kids that normally couldn't afford your camps or your programs can actually partake.
Yeah, so we're working along the Jesse D Foundation. So they created that foundation a year ago. He was a big part of the community, and he unfortunately passed away. And so his sister set up the foundation to be able to send kids to camp that that normally can't really afford it. And I feel like it's been, I mean, I know that it's been 100% a success. And, you know, that's part of the things that keep me going too. You know, it's having all these people coming in and wanting to be part of it. So, you know, in 5 years, to go back to the question that you asked me, in 5 years, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and be part of the kids' lives and, you know, help. You know, it takes a village. And don't you know about that?
You're speaking to me. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, actually it was really interesting because I listened to the podcast that you had with Ali, and that got me thinking about a lot of things too. And you know, she was giving the analogy about the beach ball and stuff that resonated a lot with me for sure. So.
Especially at the moment when you're in the middle of a flood, eh?
Exactly. So anyway, so yeah, I love what I do, and I love the people that I work with, and we're all in it for the same reasons. And you know, we want to give back to the community that's given us so much, and just to be part of it. And
thank you for all that. And so tell me, this foundation, it's called Jesse D.
The Jesse D Foundation.
Jesse D. Okay. And so I'll put the links to that and the Push to Heal in the show notes, as well as the links to the website for the compound.
And Riders on Board too.
And Riders on Board. So these are all the organizations that we've mentioned and the show. And if you want to include any of links to your own, you know, social media, you can, or if the organization has social media pages that you want to link to, we can do that as well. When did Jesse D pass away?
Last March.
Okay, a year ago. Was it a sports related death? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And I mean, I personally didn't know him, but he was a big part of the skateboarding community in Calgary. And, you know, he's impacted a lot of skateboarders in the community. And his sister wanted to start the foundation because, you know, it was a huge part of his life. And for her to do that, I think is absolutely amazing. They did a fundraiser at the compound last year in July. Yeah. And it was really successful. And, you know, like I said, it got kids to camp. And for us, it's such, I mean, you see those kids come to camp and they don't get to experience that otherwise. And it just warms my heart, you know, to see those kind of experiences. And yeah. So
awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you want to promote or anything that you want to say before we sign off today? What about your girls clubs? Anything you want to promote there?
It's Riders on Board, you know, it's the whole community, it's the whole club. It's not my club, it's not anyone's club, it's our club. And we all work together, and we, you know, I work with the boys as well, and it's just kind of a big family, you know. And that's what kept me in Alberta. I could have gone back to Quebec, but no, Riders on Board, that's what kept me here.
Awesome. And so you're going to try and teach me how to skateboard. This is going to be interesting. Have you ever taught anyone over 50 to skateboard or snowboard before?
Actually, for my dad's 50th birthday, I taught him how to snowboard.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and he snowboarded for about 2 years until he decided that he had met enough trees.
And I also really appreciate that you encouraged me to wait until the street sweeping was done so that I don't hit a rock and break my neck. So thank you for that. So yeah, safety is good. Awesome. Well, if we'll have to do a check back and tell everybody how we did.
Definitely. I'll get some videos too.
If I don't have a broken neck. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
I'm going to cover you in bubble wrap and have you put like all the pads on.
Perfect. That's perfect. If I want to be able to, like, you know, those big things that people play soccer in, those big bubbles. I think I should wear that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Hello, friends. Thanks for listening. I am your host, Maureen Towns, and I am the founder of Maureen Towns Consulting. We support families who are experiencing disruptive mental health and addictions issues go from chaos to calm. If you enjoyed this podcast, please listen, share, and subscribe. And please also know that you can reach me at maureen.towns.com, and you can reach out to me through the website, and I'm happy to chat with anybody. My work, the work that I do, is based on my 25 years working as a nurse in both the public and the private healthcare systems in Canada, as well as my facilitation and my education and my training in leadership development, as well as my experience with my own families and supporting them, both all the successes and all the struggles with mental health and addictions issues. And you can read all about those issues in my upcoming book, should be released this year. Please, should be released this year. And the book is called Broken Open. So keep your eyes peeled for that and any information on that. Again, thanks for listening. Please don't forget to share and subscribe.